Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Members of the House, members of the Executive, members of the public, good afternoon. The Protected Disclosure Bill was duly adopted by the House and referred to the National Council of Provinces that amended Section 9 of the bill to make it inclusive. The committee deliberated on the amendment and have accepted the amendment with the DA and the ACDP indicating that they do support the amendment even if they didn't actually support the bill. The report to be considered. Thank you.
As there are no list of speakers, I recognize the Chief Whip.
The Deputy Speaker, I move that the bill as amended be passed.
Are there any objections?
Yes, objections, Deputy Speaker, and the DA requests a declaration. Thank you.
All right, let's give an opportunity for declarations. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This bill emanates from the South African Law Reform Commission's report on protected disclosures, and the bill aims to extend the application of the Protected Disclosures Act beyond the traditional employer-employee relationship, amend the Principal Act in order to regulate joint liability, introduce a duty to inform employees or workers who have made disclosures and to provide for immunity against civil or criminal liability in certain circumstances, and creates an offence in the case of false disclosure. 3 public interest organisations made representations with regard to this piece of legislation, and the main thrust of their representations was that the criminalisation of false disclosures will have a chilling effect on whistleblowing for fear of prosecution. Honourable members, you will recall that when this bill was debated in this House, the Democratic Alliance pointed out that specifically the provision that a person who intentionally discloses false information and who ought reasonably to have known that the information is false be guilty of an offence and liable upon conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period of up to 2 years or both. And this will have a deterring effect on potential whistleblowers. Our argument remains that the phrase ought reasonably to have known places an unduly a duty or on potential whistleblowers to verify to a point the veracity of the information in question. The evaluation of whether a person reasonably ought to have known, while supposed to be an objective exercise, lends itself to different interpretations and even possibly abuse. The fact that the criminalisation clause requires an intentional disclosure and the intent to cause harm to the affected party does not mitigate the potential for abuse, as it can be argued that even a valid disclosure will usually carry some intention, quite validly, to cause harm to the affected party. Measured against the ethos of the Bill of Rights, specifically the Equality Clause, as well as the constitutional duty placed upon the legislature to ensure that legislation passed by this House should enhance rather than hamper just administrative action and promote an efficient administration, then this bill does not meet these standards. If this bill is passed again by this House today, the Democratic Alliance will consider petitioning the President, that's President Zuma, not Gupta, to not sign the bill into law in its current form. For as long as the criminalisation clause remains in this piece of flawed legislation, the Democratic Alliance cannot support it.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. When we presented our views for the second reading debate of this bill last year, we were emphatic in our rejection of it on the basis that it did not offer comprehensive protection for those who are as disgusted as us by the corruption promoted by the Zuma-Gupta alliance in this country. We indicated then that its definition of occupational detriment, the bill sought to protect employees against being subjected to any civil claim for the alleged breach of a duty of confidentiality.
Deputy Speaker,
can you please ask the DA members if they leave to leave quietly, because there's a speaker at the podium.
All members must settle down and listen to the debate. That's what I'm ruling on here. Please order, honourable members. Order. Order, honourable members. Order. Go ahead, honourable member.
We indicated then that its definition of occupational detriment, the bill sought to protect employees against being subjected to any civil claim for the alleged breach of a duty of confidentiality or a confidentiality agreement arising out of the disclosure of a criminal offense. The current amendment adds that employees are also protected when disclosing information which shows contraventions or failure to comply with the law, or the presence of a possibility of such failure happening in the future. This is part of what we asked for in the bill, to offer watertight protection of whistleblowers. But still, it is not comprehensive enough. As we argued before, the bill protects employees against civil claims for each of contracts or duties of confidentiality. This, in our view, is not adequate protection for employees. It leaves them to open or to criminal litigation by companies or those implicated in corruption. Lastly, the bill itself is defeating in that it explicitly offers no protection to employees who make claims or corruption that may later be proven to be untrue. This lack of protection for such matters will prevent many employees from airing their suspicion for corruption, because should those be later proven to be untrue, employees will be left vulnerable. This defeats the whole purpose of the bill. It will prevent people, some that were indicated in the emails of the Sunday Times, from disclosing this massive corruption, because they know they use the state funds to access the best lawyers to defend this corruption. For these reasons, the EFF does not support. Thank you.
Honorable Member, IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The Protected Disclosure Amendment Bill stems from the NDP's recommendation that the Protected Disclosures Act of 2000 be reviewed with the objective of strengthening support for whistleblowers. This was owing to the finding by the NDP that the said act does not afford the whistleblower sufficient protection. The IFP concurs with the NDP in its assertion that the protection of whistleblowers is key to a strong and resilient anti-corruption system. In fact, the decline in the number of members of society who are prepared to come forward as whistleblowers can be ascribed to this lack of sufficient protection. This is unfortunate because our law enforcement agencies rely to a large measure on the assistance of the public in a successful apprehension and prosecution of perpetrators of corrupt cases, including fraud, bribery, theft of public funds, etc. Indeed, the bill does strengthen the protection of whistleblowers by extending the ambit of the said act beyond the traditional employer-employee relationship. It also grants the whistleblower immunity from criminal and civil liability. It goes further and makes it an offense to knowingly or intentionally make a false disclosure. Although the Portfolio Committee welcomed the amendments, members were not unanimous regarding the inclusion of the clause that criminalizes intentional false disclosure. They feel that this will have a chilling effect on potential whistleblowers. The IFP, however, goes along with those parties, especially the ANC, who argue that the impact of a false disclosure is so serious on the innocent victim that a whistleblower who is guilty of the false disclosure should not go unpunished. The IFP supports this report. I thank you.
Honorable Mwabe, NFP.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, guests in the gallery. South Africa scored 45 points out of 100 by Transparency International, which ranks countries according to the perceived level of corruption through surveys and assessment. This is 4 points up from a record low 41% in 2011 and suggests that South Africa is perceived to be a generally corrupt country. The NFP welcomes any measures that will contribute towards rooting out corruption in South Africa. One such measure to root out corruption is the Protected Disclosures Amendment Bill. The bill creates additional safeguards for employees who make a protected disclosure, more commonly known as whistleblowers, and also contributes to an environment in which whistleblowers may freely disclose information that exposes corruption in the workplace. The amendment proposed by the Portfolio Committee fortifies the environment by fine-tuning and expanding on the definition of occupational detriment to employees who make a protected disclosure. The NFP welcomes this proposed amendment. Occupational detriment is a real threat and a hindrance to the freedom to make a protected disclosure, and our current legislation does not provide sufficient protection in this regard. Very often, whistleblowers are victimized after a protected disclosure, and the threat of pending civil actions has thus far escaped the scope of legislative protection. By adopting this amendment proposed today, we will take one more small step closer to drawing a legislative net around corruption in South Africa. The NFP supports this report. Thank you.
AIC, Honorable Mayor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The history of the victimization of whistleblowers and the politicization of criminal justice have by and large energized our collective effort to create the new normal in the new democratic dispensation. The Protected Disclosure Amendment Bill, introduced in 2015, was thus long overdue. It replaces the constellation of apartheid, blanket, vague, and narrow provisions in the bill's Principal Act of 2000. The apartheid style, if you think of the terminology employed to catalog the protection of independent contractors, consultants, and agents. The bill has widened the scope of the original definition of employees to a person who works or worked for another person or for the state, or B, any other person who in the manner assists or assisted in carrying on or conducted the business of any employer or client as an independent contractor or consultant or agent. C, any person who renders services to a client while being employed by a temporary employment service. The extension of the production of disclosure to independent contractors, consultants, and agents in the bill implicitly confers to these marginalized workers who, that any other law after the 1994 was unable to, their inherent dignity. The original conception in 2000 Act to exclude independent contractors from the scheme of protected disclosures was inherently flawed and ill-equipped. The protection of the disclosure of information does not, however, extend to the disclosure of false information. This would, in the strict sense of the word, not protect information peddlers who furnish incorrect disclosures. The ANC supports the adoption of the bill. I thank you.
ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, members and fellow South Africans. I should say this at the outset that the bill before us, it's a bill that was brought before Parliament before, and Parliament has dealt with this bill in its entirety. after the bill was read for the second time and was sent to the NCOP, it was then that the NCOP requested that as a further protection, we should insert one sentence in the bill which says that anything that we do about this protected disclosure must be subject to any civil claim for the alleged breach, and the duty of confidentiality and or confidentiality agreement arising out of this disclosure must be a criminal offense. What is important about this bill is that it seeks to protect not only in the employ of the state, but in the employ of the private sector, people who have information that may be used to or against the employers who by any means do some of the things that are unscrupulous. We seek to protect all those people who must give us the information and give the information to the state. Now, I think it is disingenuous of the DA to leave. Their voters must see that when we must do serious legislation in the interest of the people, they just leave the house and they go to the bar. The EFF is also the same. The people must see. The only time you see their leader...
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Yes, Honourable Member, please take your seat. Honourable Member, Honourable Bongo, take your seat. Yes, Honourable Member.
Would you ask the Honourable Member at the podium whether he would take a question about what he's just said?
Honourable Member, wait for him to take. Honourable Bongo, would you like to take a question?
How would I take a question when they are all not here? I can't take a question.
Member, the question is no. Honourable Ollis?
Then sit down.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the chairperson the EFF has turned these days. They don't come to the house. Every time you see their leader, they have turned to a Mamkopozi party. All leaks are known by them. Everything that is going wrong in the country is just known by them, and they just go to the media. We are here, we must pass serious legislation that protects people who have issues of corruption that they must bring to the state. They are also in the bar with the alliance, the DA. Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Deputy Speaker, as the African National Congress, we support that we need to protect people who, in the employ of the state and in the private sector, bring information that must assist us. Similarly, with anyone else in the country who has any information about anything, he must be able to bring it to books in a manner that is just and is legal. That's what we would like to say, Honourable Chair. We support. Thank you very much.
Honourable Chief Whip, what are you rising on, sir?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm rising on Rule 98, requesting that the decision on this question be postponed to a later date. Thank you.
Honourable members, any objection to that proposal?
Deputy Speaker?
Yes.
May we ask why? Is it because the ANC members aren't here?
Honourable Member.
A party with 249 MPs can't even pass their own legislation.
There being no objections, it is agreed to. The question is thereby postponed.
The Secretary, is it possible that we can call members of the DA who are blocking traffic outside to come inside the House?
No, Honourable Member, there's not a point of order.
Chair,
Secretary, Honourable Members.
Deputy Speaker, a point of order. Can we get someone at the slow lounge at the airport to ask the ANC members to come back?
That's not a point of order. Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of Financial Sector Regulation Bill and report of Standing Committee on Finance on amendments proposed by National Council of Provinces.
Honourable Mtetwa.
I'm still in Mtembu, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
In my notes, it's written Mtetwa. I don't know why they are misguided here. I'm sorry about it. Go ahead, Honourable Member.
My apologies, Deputy Speaker. I move in terms of Rule 3093 that the bill as amended by the National Council of Provinces and the report thereon be referred back to the Standing Committee on Finance for reconsideration and further report. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable members, are there any objections to that? No objections, agreed to. The Secretary will read the fourth order. Sorry? What? No. No. The Secretary will read the third order. It should be the third order. Yeah, go ahead.
Consideration of request for permission in terms of Rule 284 for 86 4C to inquire into amending other provisions of Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Act 2003, Act number 41 of 2003.
My notes gives me a different name. Is that you, sir? Okay, go ahead, Honorable. Honorable members, I know Honorable Masondo. What I have in my notes is Honorable Mteto, and I don't see him here. So, you, Chief Whip, please send me appropriate names next time. All right, Honorable Masondo, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, honorable members, esteemed visitors at the gallery. It is my privilege to stand here on behalf of the COCTA Portfolio Committee to indicate to you that the committee has been seized with the task of considering and discussing the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Bill, B8 2017. This bill seeks to amend the provisions of the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Act 2003, Act number 41 of 2003, the Principal Act. Having realized that this work may require the committee to get the permission of this House in compliance with the NA Rule 2863B, we hereby urge you to support this work endeavor and proposal. Thank you very much.
Are there any objections to the committee being granted permission in terms of Rule 2864C to inquire into amending other provisions of the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework? No.
Deputy Speaker, we don't have an objection, but we would like to make a declaration, please. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chairperson, let's make no bones about this. We're only having this discussion because the National House of Traditional Leaders, which had been part of the process on the part of the legislative process on the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Amendment Bill from the very start, arrived at the last minute while the Portfolio Committee was going through the draft bill clause by clause with further amendments that made substantial changes to areas of the legislation that had not initially been under review. Now, it should be noted that other stakeholders made submissions to the committee within the prescribed time frame, and they presented their concerns. And the National House of Traditional Leaders was present for this, but they made no submissions of their own. Their proposed amendments have not been subject to public participation and input, and will be considered by the committee in isolation, potentially opening this legislation up to constitutional challenge. While the DA supports the motion on this matter, if we are truly the People's Parliament, it is important that the public participation process be reopened before this bill is tabled in the House. This is in line with Section 59(1)(a) of the Constitution, which requires that the National Assembly must facilitate public involvement in the legislative process, and has been supported by the recent Constitutional Court judgment in the Land Access Movement of South Africa and others versus Chairperson of the NCOP and others, where the court held that, and I quote, "South Africa's democracy contains both representative and participatory elements. These elements are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they support and buttress one another. The court has not rejected the argument that the court has rejected the argument that the public need not participate in the legislative processes, as its elected representatives are speaking on the public's behalf." End quote. In the New Clicks judgment, Judge Sachs wrote, what matters is that at the end of the day, a reasonable opportunity is offered to members of the public and all interested parties to know about the issues and have an adequate say. And in a concurring judgment in Doctors for Life, he took the view that public involvement is of particular significance for members of groups that have been victims of processes of historical silencing. Nowhere could this be more true than in the case of traditional communities and those that represent them. The DA supports this motion on the proviso that meaningful public participation is permitted and that those who have commented earlier be permitted an opportunity to respond to the proposals of the National House of Traditional Leaders before the bill is considered by the committee for adoption. Thank you.
IFP.
Thank you, Dr. Speaker. Ngiqale nje ngokuthi ilungu elihloniphekile lisuka la kufanele sikufunde ukwamukela ukuthi inhlaka zinendlela zazo zokusebenza. Ngakho ukubambelelana kwazo akusho ukuthi kufuneka kube nomsindo ngalokho. Bonke abantu ababekele ithuba ukuthi bakwazi ukwenza imisebenzi yabo ngendlela efaneleyo. Thank you, Dr. Speaker. The recognition of fragile communities, the establishment and recognition of fragile councils, and the provision of a pragmatic statutory framework within which traditional leaders can operate are the objects of and principles of the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Act. However, we still find the non-alignment of terms of office of traditional leadership structures and provincial legislation which provides for the relationship between kings and queens and provincial houses problematic. Firstly, because the King's Councils and Kings and Queens Councils are still excluded, and then there is also the fact that no provision is yet made for funding of these structures. Then there is the issue of other provincial houses that fail to honor and establish the legislation timelessly to align their councils, yet has taken a long time, but for these structures it is necessary. The institution of traditional leadership in South Africa has a definite role to play in our country and its future. This was confirmed by the Deputy President at recent held Indaba on the institution. Traditional council leadership, though, still remains the only structure that does not have clearly defined roles and functions in the Constitution, which is Chapter 12 of the Constitution. It only talks about recognition only. In our democratic South Africa, there is no reason why traditional leadership cannot coexist with democratic governance under the rule of law. The IFP supports the move. Thank you.
Honorable Kubis, NFP.
Siyabonga kakhulu usekela somlomo nendlu yonke nehambele zethe ehloniphekile kwigarari. Siyavuma somlomo ukuthi sekela somlomo ukuthi iqhaza lobuholi bendabuko njengoba libhaliwe ku section 211 no section 2112 omthethosisekelo alanele khona ungenziwa ukulandisa lokhu kulana nje no chapter 9 we feel more should be done with it. Now, the National Freedom Party believes that empowering our traditional leaders will assist in achieving one of the major objectives of the Act, namely to restore the integrity and the legitimacy of the institution of traditional leadership in line with the customary law and practices. Deputy Speaker, we have always maintained traditional leadership has a crucial role to play in governance of our people, particularly so in rural areas. It is to traditional leadership that our people turn to in times of strife for comfort and reassurance. It is in traditional leadership which we vest the power to serve as custodians of our cultural and historical values. Moreover, traditional leadership represents continuity with our past, and it helps us reclaim our identity as Africans and represents a focal rally point for expression of our cultural diversity and aspirations. The National Freedom Party would like to see that our traditional leaders be given more direct powers of governance at municipal and district level. If we are to give serious effect to Section 31 of our Constitution, which guarantees everyone the right to their cultural, religious, and linguistic communities, then traditional leadership should play a far more prominent role in local government than what is currently provided. We believe that our traditional leaders need to be assisted financially to go out about their way of representing the interest of the people living in their jurisdiction and to be the conduit for meaningful rural development. It is through traditional leaders that people will be able to formulate their voice in matters that concern them and their communities freely, and sufficient resources must be made available to facilitate such opportunities. We support this report, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other declaration? No objections? Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The Secretary will read the fourth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry on 7th International Meeting for Parliamentarians as part of 67th International Astronautical Congress held in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Honorable Fox.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Indeed, this is the report of the Portfolio Committee of Trade and Industry, but working jointly with the Portfolio Committee on Science and Technology, a back-to-back approach. We visited Mexico. We attended the Congress at the end of September 2016. Now, space is not that remote. As children, we thought of the stars there, etc., and the moon, and we even had nursery rhymes, but the reality is, we are part, as planet Earth, of this universe. And as we are considering, as planet Earth, in inhabiting Mars, it becomes even more important to develop sound policies, principles on good governance. Now, trade and industry deals with one act, and this is the beauty of our country, balancing everything. So, on the one side, trade and industry deals with the regulatory side, the governance side, and science and technology, as these great thinkers and innovators look towards the technology, the research and development. A great idea, a different set of a mandate and minister for the governance, and another set. And if Japan had followed this route, we may not have had that catastrophe there. So we are also fortunate. South Africa has never said, winner takes all. We want to share. So although we did bid and we wanted SCAR, etc., we were happy to be announced as South Africa as one of the partners. And really, I must congratulate you, Minister Naledi Pandor from Science and Technology, and I know the economic cluster here represented by Minister Patel is also here, where we have SALT, the Southern African Large Telescope. Most of us know it as it were, the Meerkat or SALT, and then we have the Square Kilometre Array, SCAR. And it's not a very good abbreviation because of its connotations, but SCAR is the way forward. Go and visit there and go and occupy all those B&Bs and grow it up. So the thing is that, you know, you go there, all the others, they are Dr. S, Professor Y, and so on and so forth, and you feel quite small until you are told, as parliamentarians, you are the voice of your people, and therefore we need you to tell us as scientists. No, I've just explained I'm not, but you're not listening. Now, that how do we govern? Because the most important thing is people. People. How do we serve our people? And science must be made to serve our people. And it can. It can. It can help us to develop policy, to develop planning, and most of all, to implement. Now, we now have in this international fraternity Unispace 50. and that emphasizes the 4 thematic pillars: space economy, space society, space accessibility, and believe it or not, space diplomacy. I think I should start applying now to be a diplomat on Mars. I may get that one. But the most important thing, and you know, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am so glad that I was delayed until now to present this report, because this is Youth Month. And one of the big recommendations is that in terms of capacity building, up there, the young people who are our future, they have told us, please involve youth, not you, ma'am, youth in the space explanations. So we are going to do just that. And so I commend this report to you as we reach for the stars, Mars to inhabit and help build a better life on planet Earth, South Africa. Thank you.
Honourable, I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip.
The Deputy Speaker, I move that the report be accepted and adopted by this House.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Deputy Speaker, no objections, but we would like to make a declaration, please.
Okay, go ahead. Declaration.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and good afternoon to all of our young guests in the gallery. Certainly the Honourable Fubs, every time she comes up here, is one of the more lively and energetic members that we have in the House, and I think that every year she continues to qualify for Youth Month. So good to see her still here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, space exploration provides us with an opportunity for increased investment and job creation in South Africa, something we desperately need in times of recession that we're currently in. However, for such investment and job creation to take place, we need to ensure that we have an enabling environment that allows for multinational companies to invest in our budding scientists and entrepreneurs to continue with their research and development as we reach for the stars. Space is certainly a place that South Africa can play a greater part in, where our voice can be heard more loudly on the international space stage. However, we also need to recognize the great technological advances that we stand to benefit through this, especially when it comes to predicting natural disasters. And we've just seen one horrific one in Knysna. And if one looks at international trends, specifically in the United States and Australia, they are using space technology to predict such wildfires and the spread of them. And hopefully in the future, we can use such technology to mitigate these types of disasters. But in order to take full appreciation of these technologies, we need to ensure that there's greater cooperation between Science and Technology Minister and between our department in Trade and Industry. Mars is the next frontier. We need to be prepared to forge ahead into this new period of space exploration and development. And the Democratic Alliance will support the report. Thank you.
Okay. Before you, Honourable Member, Honourable Members, please join me also to welcome a parliamentary commission from Uganda, led by Honourable Cecilia Atim Gwal, visiting us in South Africa. Welcome to South Africa and Parliament. Please go ahead, Honourable Member. EFF.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. While we as the EFF do not object to the adoption of the report of the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry on the 7th International Meeting for the Parliamentarians as part of the 67th International Astronautical Congress in Mexico, it is necessary for lawmakers to continue to be part and parcel of spaces that are dedicated to information,
new research and innovation. As the report clearly demonstrates, the space is becoming more and more important and integral part of the global economy. And it is also clear that the element of sustainability and affordability of exploration that is not only environmentally friendly, but it takes into account broader needs of society. South Africa must continue to participate in programs of space exploration. We must be part of creation and discovery of innovation. However, the history of space exploration has demonstrated that prioritization of economic benefits from few multinational corporations over societal programs, and at times with programs that are full of discrepancies and loss of billions. It is therefore important that there is a clear consideration of limited resources. Our involvement in space exploration must benefit humanity, and in future these groups must include other parties. If we are increasing the delegation, it must not mean we are increasing the number of the people from the ANC. Other parties must get opportunities. Tomorrow we will have to decide on these policies and laws when we are in power. I thank you.
Honorable Staten, IFP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The conference aim was to show emerging countries like South Africa the benefits of becoming more involved after this program was being dominated for years by the US and Russia. The challenge of space exploration has sparked new scientific and technical knowledge and inherent value to humankind. Computers became exponentially better in understanding the world. Software will disrupt most traditional industries in the near future. The Goddard Space Flight Center listed 2,271 satellites in orbit during the duration of the Astronomical Congress. We witnessed one purposely being destroyed on screen. Russia has the most satellites currently in orbit with 1,324 satellites. United States follow with 658. This is only spacecraft and not a 5,500,000 pieces of smaller orbital debris that circles Earth. 22,000 of these are big enough for officials on the ground to track, and even the smaller pieces of space junk float in the Earth's orbit at speeds exceeding 35,000 kilometers an hour. That's roughly 8 kilometers a second. Several solutions to retrieve or moving the space junk have been put forward by the Braunschweig University of Space Technology, but also unsuccessful. Changes in the rotation of the Earth's core can be detected by the changes in the Earth's magnetic field. And in his presentation, Prof. Dunbury said the Earth's core has accelerators. His theory was that huge glaciers such as Argentina's Benito Moreno that contained huge amount of mass near the poles close to the Earth's axis of rotation is melting. When glaciers melt, the melt water ends up in the ocean, moving the weight away from the axles and accelerating the Earth's rotation. Our solar system is just over 4.5 billion years old. And the sun that's burning hydrogen into helium is running out of hydrogen to burn and is already noticeably brighter. It's estimated by scientists that after about 1 billion years from now, the sun will become hot enough to boil our oceans. To a great extent, the benefits from space exploration are rooted in the generation of new knowledge, which is the first reward and which has been inherent value to humankind. Space technology has helped us understand how Earth works and how we can keep it healthy. Space is already becoming the link among systems of systems, and its enabling function may therefore represent a new element that will help to bring our society towards a goal of sustainable living on the planet for all. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you. Space and space exploration is undeniable a new frontier where man and science and technology meet. Hence, it is fitting that our parliament should be represented by portfolio committees on trade and industry, science and technology, and other relevant portfolios. The benefits for South Africa and our people of actively participating in this frontier could be immense at many levels, for instance, economic, social, and political, and the responsibility rests with our representatives and role players in this field to ensure that we get maximum benefit. The National Freedom Party understands and accepts that humanity's journey into space is a reality, and we welcome the fact that there is now full recognition that the benefits of this journey to humanity should be motivation for further technological developments and explorations into space. And yes, we know that there is unanimous agreement among countries that there is a need for development of stronger space governance frameworks and mechanisms, which we welcome. We do, however, wish to pause and ask these questions. What ethical guidelines are in place to ensure that this journey is not one of exploitation? What mechanism will be in place to ensure compliance? And more importantly, what institutional enforcement options will be available to ensure that all humanity share equally and equitably in this journey? We trust that our representative to future international meetings for parliamentarians will vigorously canvass these issues and ensure that our participation does not transgress the values which we stand for and serves to espouse our voice at the same time. On a reflective concluding note, Chairperson, discussing this report here today reveals a bitter irony in the state of affairs in South Africa. On the one hand, we are participating as a country at the cutting edge of technology and science, taking a proud place in a global environment geared up to expand our technology and human capital into space. Yet, at the same time, many of our people do not have access to basic human dignities, such as clean and safe drinking water, decent sanitation, and secure homes. The National Freedom Party, we say it is good to keep an eye on the future, but at the same time, we should not neglect to address the challenges of the present. Deputy Speaker, we support this report.
Thank you. ANC.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, dit is vir my 'n aangename voorreg as 'n lid van die ANC, maar as ook 'n inwoner van die Noord-Kaap om te sien dat vooruitgang wel plaasvind. En hierdie is 'n baie groot geleentheid vir inwoners van die Noord-Kaap en spesifiek die area van die SKA om te sien dat jong mense bemagtig word, want ons sien al reeds veranderinge en uitdagings wat aangespreek word, en dit is typies van die ANC-regering, dat hulle vir hulle beywer nog altyd om die jong mense, maar ook die inwoners van agtergeblewe gemeenskappe te verander, omstandighede te verander, en deur bemagtiging, en dit is waarom het so belangrik is om te sê, ons is trots op die ANC-geleide regering, en ons daarom sien ons uit daarna, om te sien dat dinge wel plaasvind, en dat dit nie ten woord is nie, maar ook wel in daad, en daarom ondersteun ons dit. Dankie.
Thank you. Honourable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the fifth order.
Debate on Youth Day, advancing youth economic empowerment.
The Honourable Deputy Minister of Education and Training.
Deputy Speaker, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honourable Members, young people in the gallery, fellow South Africans. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I rise to open this important debate on Youth Day during this year of Oliver Tambo, and when we honor the 1976 martyrs who 41 years ago led a milestone student protest against a decree issued by the then Education Department that Afrikaans was to become a language of instruction in all our schools. The rioting soon spread from Soweto to other townships in the Witwatersrand, Pretoria, Durban, and Cape Town, and developed into the largest outbreak of violence that South Africa has ever experienced. These were noble and dedicated students who showed reckless disregard for their own safety, and in emulating their forebears, they courageously rejected the Bantu education system, demanding quality education for all, which was in turn going to allow our youth to claim their rightful place in history. Former President Oliver Tambo, a towering intellectual, a mathematics teacher, who converted to become a lawyer, showing his outstanding intellectual abilities, concluded and said, and I quote, "There is no vocabulary to describe the nobility and the pathos of the conscious sacrifices that the black youth of South Africa have made to free themselves, their people in the country, from forces determined to keep us forever the chattels." Close quote. Honorable Chairperson, 41 years later, and as we celebrate the great strides we have made to defeat the tyrant of apartheid and its skewed policies that favor the white minority, we have got to consolidate the gains of freedom as young people of South Africa, for history has now imposed on us to occupy the forward trenches in the final assault on poverty, unemployment, and ignorance. We should be able to identify the gap for development and actively pursue the objectives that seek to uplift our people and renew our society. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the 1994 democratic breakthrough saw us embarking on a process of rewriting history. We had to re-engineer our education system, and I am happy to report that whilst there are still outstanding issues of transformation and ensuring that access is followed by success, but we now have legislative and policy frameworks in place which guide us on our new trajectory and which we use as an expression of the future we aspire, particularly for our post-school system. Fellow South Africans, education remains an indispensable device of social transformation. It has the propensity to enhance the employability of our youth and assist them in ridding from themselves the bondage of poverty and underdevelopment. We believe that skilling our labor force will play a role in fighting unemployment directly by providing skilled people to a skill-staffed economy, but also indirectly by providing a stimulus to economic growth and the development of new and existing industries and economic sectors. We are also aware that this is a ticking time bomb, that such a big number of young and energetic population of our society is out of school and out of jobs, yet we continue to import skills. This is the reason why our government took an informed decision to make education, job creation, and decent work its #1 priority for the current period. And in this regard, would like to highlight the fact that education and training are indeed a critical component of achieving growth and development of the various priority economic sectors. Honorable members, over the past decade, we have been highly engaged in the process of restructuring our sectors and positioning them ideally to facilitate sector-specific training initiatives with both the private and public sectors. I can report that contrary to popular belief that these are corrupt institutions, that they are now in contact with the overwhelming number of employers in the country, and we have invested sufficient resources for them to facilitate partnerships between our training institutions and employers. These partnerships will benefit the large number of youth or students of our country who will now be able to access both theoretical and practical knowledge. It is indeed concerning, honorable members, that we have a number of both University of Technology and TVET college students who cannot complete their studies and graduate because they do not possess the workplace learning component required to do so. This has compelled SETAs to expedite their efforts to forge these linkages, and indeed we are beginning to see results. Again, as part of addressing the above challenges as government, we have signed a skills accord together with labor, business, and community constituencies at NETLEC, and through this accord, we want to turn every workplace into a training space. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I need to indicate that in our country there is this wrong notion that post-school education only means university education. This is not the case. And we are trying very hard to dispel this notion. And in our quest to promote TVET colleges or the TVET college sector, we are hoping that our young people will find them equally attractive. As directed by the NDP, we want to reverse the anomaly of having more young people in our university system than in our TVET system. Our view is that at least by 2030, we should be having a ratio of 3 TVET students to 1 university student. We see the TVET college sector as a viable option for young people because it is our strong belief that the courses offered at our vocational education and training centers are appropriate to build the critical skills base that our economy needs, and in turn will make our young people more eligible for employment opportunities. We are putting systems in place to ensure that the output from these institutions are not for the sake of producing graduates, and hence we are progressively influencing the modification of the curriculum in order to proactively respond to the needs of the labor market. We continue to urge our young people to consider taking up careers along technical and vocational skills, this within a context of a very serious shortage of mid-level personnel in the country. We certainly have to do more in prioritizing this area, as people with these skills are able to fill the many jobs which are necessary to expand the economy and in turn help our young people achieve their own sustainable livelihoods. We have declared 2014 to 2024 as the decade of the artisan, with the sole aim of creating a pipeline of qualified artisans who can play a crucial role in growing the emerging sectors of our economy. Our government is determined to change the deep-seated structural inequality that faces our youth, who constitute, by the way, the largest proportion of the South African populace. In our quest to sharpen the country's global competitive edge and industrial productive capacity, the white paper for post-school education and training system endeavors to train 30,000 artisans per annum by 2030 as directed by the National Development Plan. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Department of Higher Education and Training has been leading in encouraging all spheres of government to increase their intake of internships, and we are confident that this trend will grow steadily. On the issue of access to higher education, we have been concerned, of course, about our poor yet academically deserving students who are failing to access post-school education and training opportunities because they do not have the means to actually do so. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme has been doing a sterling job in this regard, but there is no doubt that the demand for funding has been too huge. To date, the scheme has benefited more than 2 million South Africans who have since joined the ranks of the black middle class. We have massively extended the reach of NSFAS since the genuine call of students for a no-fee increment, but obviously, as I said, as we increase the allocation, the demand also increases. But we will be making pronouncements after the commission that was appointed by the President has concluded its work and its report has been considered by government. I feel obliged, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Members, to digress and express my heartfelt condolences to the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Bladen Nzimande, and his family for the loss of his mother, to whom we remain indebted for giving us such an industrious intellectual who I have been assigned by the President to ably lead the ministry and the department with. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Waikasi, GA.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as has become typical of the ANC for a debate of this importance, and as we commemorate the youth of 1976, ANC MPs and cabinet ministers just haven't seen it important enough to pitch up. The ANC has sold out my generation, particularly young black South Africans. There can be no doubt that the legacy of colonialism and apartheid continues to dictate our life stories. The circumstances of our birth still dictate our success, and these circumstances have a color to it. Why then do I blame the ANC? Is it perhaps because I'm a DA MP? Or maybe Is it because despite 23 years into our democratic dispensation, and despite spending 1/5 of our budget on education, a black child in South Africa will receive an education that is considered amongst the very worst in the world? It is therefore no coincidence that the same child is still 100 times more likely to grow up in poverty than a white child. The reality is that if you have the misfortune of being a poor black child growing up in South Africa, you would most likely be one of the 50% of grade 1 pupils who will never live to write a matric examination. Most certainly, you will be one of the 80% of children who would receive an education that is considered amongst the very worst in the world, an education that will consign you to a lifetime in poverty. And if through sheer grit and determination you manage to beat these odds and actually write and pass a matric examination, chances are that you would be part of the 75% of matriculants without a bachelor's pass. Without a decent education, any form of economic empowerment for black South Africans will remain elusive. I have no doubt that the ANC will continue to blame all of this on colonialism and apartheid. And they're right. They're quite right. But what South Africans have come to learn, that though and whilst colonialism and apartheid has placed young black South Africans in a state of economic disempowerment, it is the ANC government that has kept them there. This is not the ANC that we supported growing up. It is an ANC that has sold out an entire generation to the Guptas, to SATU, and to patronage politics. For those naive enough to believe, even amongst your own benches, that electing CR17 at your conference will somehow cause the ANC to self-correct, one must only listen to his brown nosing of SATU, calling them great and powerful in order to gain their political support. Selling out our children.
Order. Yes, honorable member. Honorable Kasim, please take your seat.
Is the member ready to take a question to answer as to whether there's anything he can ever debate outside the Gupta issue?
Wait, let the honorable member indicate.
I think South Africans have had enough of the Guptas and your president, quite frankly. I'm not willing to take your question.
Can ever debate?
Go ahead, honorable member.
Selling out our children is apparently a prerequisite to leading the ANC. No wonder there is something broken. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it's all about priorities and choices. Youth economic empowerment will forever remain an empty rhetoric if the ANC is entrusted with the choices that will define our generation. Time must surely be up. Young black South Africans face unemployment levels of over 60%. Over 3 million South Africans referred to as NEETs or not in education or employment or training, and over 9 million South Africans are unemployed. Our youth are suffocating, and yet the ANC is too self-obsessed to realize it. Take the ANC mayor of eThekwini as an example. Her answer to Youth Month is to spend ratepayers' money on a breakfast for babes who do more and nasty C. Now, I must admit that since I don't listen to music, I have no idea who these people are, although I have reason to believe that at least one of them is nasty, and I'm referring to the ANC mayor. The point, though, is that it shouldn't be about fancy shindigs or gaining popularity to win an ANC leadership battle. It should be about making the choices required to save an entire generation who have been set up to fail and never make it out of poverty. The DA is the only party that can make these choices. South Africans must choose a different government if we are to truly empower our youth. Since the DA became the government in the Western Cape, we have broken new ground and have both the highest retention rates and bachelor's pass rates in the country. The pass rate for the most disadvantaged schools in the province has been improved to 75%, having been 57% when the DA took over from the ANC in the Western Cape in 2006. A DA-led government in 2019 is surely the best hope for true empowerment of young black South Africans. Opening opportunities for young South Africans and preparing them for these opportunities will be our greatest focus. When leading government post-2019, we will ensure that young black South Africans have access to a truly quality basic education which will empower learners to succeed. We'll provide a free year of vocational training to all matriculants. We'll offer free quality higher education and training to poor qualifying students up to a postgraduate level. We'll invest heavily in internships and learnership opportunities, including a meaningful youth wage subsidy. We'll invest in small businesses and support young people to build and employ others. We can do all this and more because, as the Democratic Alliance, we are not beholden to the same forces which have captured the ANC. A DA government would surely put young people first. Thank you very much.
Honorable Mbata.
Deputy Speaker, our young students and youth at the gallery, colleagues and friends, the best present for South Africans is to take the ANC out of power. Because just like in any circumstance, it is a liberation movement that has run out of its own course. On the occasion of the 41st anniversary of June 16, we would like to salute the generation of 1976. This generation took everything it has, irrespective of the shortcomings of their time. They decided that they, as a generation, will define their own struggles informed by their own oppression. And in this, they excel in their own struggle. As a Marxist-Leninist Fanonian movement, we draw our aspirations and our struggles to continue the cause of economic freedom in our lifetime from the June 16, 1976 movement. Our struggle for economic freedom to young people means the following. It means you will obtain education free from educare to high school and continue from high school to higher education up until first degree. That is the distance that we can go as a loving government. In paying tribute to these young lions of 1976, the gallant fighters of our time, we would like to thank them for a life well lived, a life well cherished for our nation to be born today. Hector Peterson and Tsietse Mashinini were gallant fighters that continue to lead the symbolism of this great struggle. They fought against Afrikaans as a medium of instruction, but that was not the only struggle. It was a struggle to decolonize education as a whole, the struggle to put the best interest of black oppressed at the heart of the equation of what was fair and what was just. And this is the struggle that drew the international community and the armed struggle closer. While the ANC leaders were busy drinking beer in Lusaka and sipping whiskey in London, our young people fought apartheid forces in the street daily. Our young people continued the cry. They said, freedom or death, victory is certain. We also wish to link the struggle of 1976 with a very unique struggle, the struggle of the United Democratic Front, the struggle of Kenik Mtakathindlovu, Archie Gumede, Hector Peterson and Tsietse Mashinini never met Archie Gumede, neither did they ever meet and never met Kenik Mtakathindlovu. But these two struggles co-authored and co-created a journey and conditions that made our people both inside and outside the country, meaning those involved in the armed struggle and those involved in international isolation, to have a fertile ground. Our youth today are fighting for economic freedom in our lifetime, not because it has to be a destination. It's a continued journey because until we have our land, freedom means nothing. We will continue to fight unemployment because it is skyrocketing under the ANC rule. We will continue to fight inequalities because the ANC has no shame. Thank you very much.
IFP, Honorable Mkhuleko Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, and the youth of South Africa in the gallery and at home. Let us salute the youth of 1976, and from their commitment to freedom and democracy and education, let us also then do what they did and continue that struggle to ensure that South Africa becomes a better place for all young South Africans. In 2017, the youth of South Africa are faced with high unemployment, 27%, stunted economic growth, junk status, a technical recession, poverty, inequality, social ills, and a lack of leadership. Yet we come here and speak about economic freedom. Honorable Deputy Speaker, since 2012 when I got to this parliament, I have raised the issue and shall continue doing so, that for so long as we do not have a dedicated and focused parliamentary committee to deal with youth matters, we are leaving the youth behind. There's a multi-party women's caucus, yet there's no formal structure of parliament to at the very least begin meditating on the issues of young people. Last year we had the issue of fees must fall, and an ad hoc arrangement was made just for us to come and sit together. It materialized to nothing. But it begs the question, why is the multi-party youth caucus not receiving attention? Well, it is because out of 249 members of parliament of the ANC on the side of the House, only one of them is below the age of 35, out of 249. Honorable Deputy Speaker, fees have not fallen. Decolonized education remains unachieved. NSFAS remains complicated and corrupt, and those who need it most do not get it. So, how did we get here? Well, during the days of the struggle, the ANC said liberation now, education later. And thus the sanity of the IFP and Principal Tellers, we said education for liberation. If we can go back to those basics and focus on ensuring that we create the knowledge, skills, and expertise which our economy needs, and then for us to begin and identify scientific, technological, and innovative capabilities in our country, beneficiate around them, and create new economies, we'll be able to grow this education. Colleges of education must be reopened so that we've got quality teachers who can go back into our schools and give quality teaching. We are recycling ignorance. We've got teachers who are incapable to teach because the system is incapable of teaching them how to teach, and they go back into the classroom and actually mete out what it is that they are failing to do. Honorable Deputy Speaker, let us address the land question for the sake of economic growth and economic development. But the bottom line is, as I've said before, Honorable House Chairperson, the ANC has failed the people of South Africa, the ANC has failed the youth, and I gave you a red card before. Honorable Member, your time has expired. Pack your bags and go, you have failed the youth.
The next speaker is Honorable Mwabe.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members and guests. When our hard-fought democracy came into being, paid for by the blood and sacrifices of the class of 1976, the youth had hoped that we were at the dawn of a new era. The youth had dreamed of the day when everybody would be equal, where dignity would be a cornerstone of our social fabric, and a bright future would be beckoned to all. Looking back, we can see that we were somehow deceived, and we have to ask ourselves today, will we have the courage to see that we are still being deceived, or will we be quick to hope once more? Empowering our youth at an economic level is the key for a better future, a future of hope and a future of possibilities. If we are to address youth economic empowerment, we will have to address the burning issue of youth unemployment and skills development. Chairperson, our current youth unemployment rate is almost 48% and has worsened over the past 8 years, despite a great deal of policy attention and the implementation of a range of public and private interventions. From the submissions made today, it is clear that the challenge of youth unemployment in South Africa is a structural issue, which will require massive policy investment, political will and time. It is fine that we invest in the long-term strategic goals, but the NFP believes that it is equally important to concentrate on what can be done in the interim, what can be done right now. Maybe Honorable Deputy Minister Manamela will have also to visit the issue of the curriculum in our tertiary institutions. Is it fine that we keep on popping money on NSFAS, but the graduates are not what the labor market wants? Ngeke usize ukufaka imali ema-university singabhekanga ukuthi into efundwa khona yilena efundwa abaqashi na. Okunye lokwenza ukuthi sibe nabantu abasha abahleli emakhaya ngoba izifundo esinazo azikhulumi kuloku okufunwa abaqashi. Kufanele sikuvakashelele kwesikubheke ukuthi imali yethu yasebenzela na. The NFP believes that if the issue of youth unemployment is not addressed as a matter of urgency, the situation can be expected to increase the levels of frustration and impatience among our youth and will contribute to a cycle of chronic unemployment and poverty which has to be avoided at all costs. But whatever we do, let us not deceive our youth again with empty promises. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Fultani.
I'm a recycled youth. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the 41st anniversary of the National Youth Day is marked against the reality of a country that is experiencing economic hardships, with skyrocketing youth unemployment, chronic poverty, and deprivation. These challenges mean that government needs to increase investment in human capital development. In addition to improving basic education, the training systems must be transformed so that young people can acquire relevant and quality skills that can help them master their lives and contribute to the socio-economic development of their country. For this to happen, it will, amongst other things, require the following: increase investment in the training institutions, reorienting the curriculum to introduce practical entrepreneurial training, decentralizing training to local authorities, including local artisans at village level, linking training institutions to the labor market for absorption. We also need to promote youth citizenship in an inclusive manner. The number of youth that is forced to go to the streets is on the rise as a result of poverty, lack of employment, and loss of hope. In this regard, there's a need to decriminalize socially oriented street youth. They should be made to feel secure and should be facilitated to take advantage of emerging economic opportunities in the mainstream society. More efforts should be put in place to rehabilitate young offenders and drug addicts. This calls for a change in attitude and outlook among policymakers in respect of the activities and aspirations of young people, especially those in the streets. We need a strategy to assist young people to be entrepreneurs, and this strategy should include, but not be limited to, 1, continuously improvement of the National Youth Policy 2020, continuously monitoring, evaluating, and improving youth access to credit, continuously and consistently providing business development service for youth, and improving the institutional and enterprise network. Given that not all young people can be entrepreneurs, the labor-intensive based methods for infrastructure development will have to be seriously reconsidered. At the core of the issues that weigh against young people is corruption, especially among those who are charged with the important task of governance, of ensuring that the dividends of democracy reach all our people, including youth. Corruption must be rooted out together with its branches. Further, youth, as an integral part of the South African society, are equally facing a variety of other challenges, including residual social racism, tribalism, xenophobia, and other forms of social pathologies, choking off our vision of a free and just society. Honorable Chair, as these challenges affect our young people, female youth are significantly worse off, and special priority needs to be applied to the social, cultural, and political recognition they deserve. Accordingly, youth must, working together as a social force and as an integral part of a broader society, take lead in the championing of their own development and dictate their own destiny. This work must be done, and it must be done now.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Madisha.
The Youth Day in our country is linked to the uprising of students on June 16, 1976 in Soweto, and of course beyond Soweto borders. We know that the uprising related to the introduction of Bantu education and the introduction of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in schools. That was an attempt by the apartheid regime to ossify apartheid. We know that as a consequence of June 16, many students stopped going to school and joined the liberation movement. We know that others simply stopped going to school, that as a consequence, they gained no skills and thus never had the opportunity of gainful employment. We know that this led to many turning to gangsterism, thuggery, criminality, and social decay. June 16 was the spark that ignited our liberation struggle. It was the youth that started our internal revolution. It's hard not to see parallels between June 16, 1976, and the challenges that face our youth today. More than 20 years into democracy, young people are still languishing in poverty and are plagued by crime, violence, unemployment, and lack of education. Today, our youth are subjected to failing state schooling. Our state schools condemn more than half of our schools' youth to a future of unemployment and welfare dependency. Over half of our youth between 21 and 25 are not in education or employment. 6 out of every 10 people younger than 25 are unable to find any employment at all. Today, our jails are filled with youth, but not through their involvement in liberation struggles, but rather through hunger. The anger of the youth is more palpable than ever. We have witnessed their anger on our university campuses, but those
be expropriated for a public purpose or in the public's interest, which land on a tenure of land.
South Africa, quite frankly, restrictive form is by you and policy.
Impossible to arrest those people. Otherwise, we breed a culture of lawlessness, criminal activity, because if we handle the land question recklessly, we run the risk of descending into an unnecessary state of violence. So the police must shape up or ship out. I thank you.
The state has so much land in its possession.
Or ship out. I thank you. Or ship out. I thank you.
The state has.
The answer, the NFP general range of CAS
is also wise land in as much of this.
Criminal activity, because if we handle the land question recklessly, we run the risk of descending into an unnecessary state of violence. So the police must shape up or ship out. I thank you.
The state has so
and yet restitute continued support and so because if we handle the land question recklessly, we run the risk of descending into an unnecessary state of violence. So the police must shape up or ship out. I thank you.
The state has so
The answer to effecting believes that, and by 100 to facilitate a second round of land claim, will simply
State
with these matters legally
able to absorb.
as the Constitution states must prevail. As this is
that in the
ending our land, their land.
All yet restricted person, really land grabs must be stopped, and the police must do everything possible to arrest those people. Otherwise, we breed a culture of lawlessness, criminal activity, because if we handle the land question recklessly, we run the risk of descending into an unnecessary state of violence. So the police must shape up or ship out. I thank you.
The state has so much
but from their discoveries too. Without a healthy balance, South Africa could find itself rejecting all the advances of modern education, science and medicine that originate in other parts of the world. And this would include penicillin and HIV antiretroviral treatment drugs, neither of which were developed in Africa. We cannot limit the knowledge base of South Africa's next generations to only regional knowledge and culture. We must, of course, be locally relevant and celebrate research and researchers in South Africa. The ACDP has confidence in today's youth.
The next speaker is the Honourable Tseke.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, Honourable Ministers present, Honourable Members of Parliament, the learners in the gallery and the guests in the gallery, Dumelang. Allow me to join my progressive comrades in celebrating the lives of our fearless young people who paid the ultimate price of death for the heroic and revolutionary role they played in objecting the discriminatory apartheid education system, who saw it befitting to fight for the rights and to fight for the liberation of our people. The struggle fought by Comrade Peter Mokaba, Tsetsi Mashinini Solomon Mahlangu, Andrew Madi should not be lost in vain, but we must soldier on as young people in making sure that we radically transform the socio-economic empowerment of our young people in the dusty streets of Marapiani, of Tlahameng, of Matatiele, and the rest of the country. As we celebrate the centenary of our former President Oliver Reginald Tambo, we must take stock of where we come from, what are the legacies that they've left in the country, and how best can we shape our future for the generations to come. The ANC-led government is committed in moving this country forward, in making sure that young people, including young people with disabilities, receive job opportunities. I must say, House Chairperson, that the legacy of more than 300 years of colonialism and slavery cannot and will never be erased in 23 years. That's a fact, Honorable Kasim. Let me also remind honorable members that the youth of this country is not lost. As we celebrate this year's June 16, we must remember that the lost generation are the ones who stole our land. And today they claim that if we take back our land, there will be civil war. Nonetheless, we are not frightened or threatened by white monopoly capitalists who forever wants to enrich themselves.
Honourable Tseke, will you just take your seat, please? Honourable Kasim, you can't take phone calls in the House. It's quite clear, and I'll ask the whips of the day to please address the member. Continue, Honourable Member. Honourable Tseke, you may continue.
Thank you very much. On top of that situation, lost generation, Chairperson, the lost generation are the ones who stole our land, and today they claim that if we take back our land, there will be civil war. Nonetheless, you are not frightened or threatened by white monopoly capitalists who forever wants to enrich themselves and has robbed our forefathers of their belongings. The ANC as a leader of the society must continue radically so to represent the voice of the voiceless and implement the mandate that was given by the 62% of our voters in the 2014 national elections. South Africa is a generation that must find its way more comfortably and productively in rapid changing country and world. By investing in a focused and a strategic way in this generation, we are guaranteeing a great and a bright future for our country. Oliver Tambo once said, a country, a movement, a person that does not value its youth and children does not deserve its future. As we declared 2017 a year of Oliver Tambo, we must continue to move our great country towards the vision of a united, a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and a prosperous society. That's the strategic objective of the National Democratic Revolution. Chairperson, the path which our country has chosen is a complex and involves extreme commitment and dedication from us, those assigned to lead. South Africa belongs to all its people, and the future of our country is a collective future. Doing good for youth is good for business. As we pay tribute to the 1976 youth, we acknowledge that the struggle was not in vain.
Like we are congratulating, we must remember their pains they went through. We must remember the pain they went through, that it was not in vain. We do this fully knowing that when Solomon
Chairperson, South Africa has made enormous strides in youth development over the years. Government has spent more than 710 million to support over 15,000 entrepreneurship, spent billions of rands in learnership, internship, and scholarship programs. The Art and Culture Department has introduced the Mzansi Golden Economy strategy, and a number of high-impact programs targeting youth and women in the arts has been identified. The EPWP program or initiatives that sees young people involved in the refurbishment, rehabilitation, and maintenance of community infrastructure across the country. Chairperson, an ANC government is making progress in the NARISEC program, that is the National Rural Youth Service Corps program, which is also implemented in the very same province that we are in the Western Cape. I know they can claim that they can claim it. NARISEC is one of the main goals. Main goal is to recruit and develop rural youth to be paraprofessionals by training them to render much needed services where they live. More than 4,500 youth have completed in various disciplines and in the construction sector. A further 855 have been trained in records management and are currently involved in scanning and tallying of land claims files in all the provinces. Thus far, a total of 19,000 have been absorbed in the program, and more jobs have been created, mainly in the construction linked to National Infrastructure Plan. Amongst others, we saw the trade sector, the government programs, business sector, transport and communication as part of the 9-point plan, which was launched by the President of this country. And amongst other projects that we saw the launch of the HBM factory in Ladysmith, which produces latex condoms, the Motorlot or rail corridor in Mpumalanga, which will unlock job opportunities among young people. The expansion of an instant coffee production, I'm staying in Mpumalanga, you can ask me outside, I will inform you. Expansion of the instant coffee production in KZN, and 17 billion has been invested in more than 5,000 jobs have unlocked in the ocean economy. I can tell you that we are active in every part of our country, and we have a footprint in every province. That's the ANC-led government that I'm talking about. Honorable members, empowering youth is building a nation. We agree that a lot still needs to be done, and we have capacity and vigor to create more jobs, job opportunities. South Africa must also start to prepare the youth for the digital and the fourth industrial revolution, the use of ICT tools in all human activities as outlined in the NDP. The ANC in its policy document outlined the process in a proper context of creating an environment that will be conducive to the generations to come. The ANC also recommends that government must establish a fourth industrial revolution commission in order to make recommendations on immediate, medium and long-term priorities and goals for the society as a whole. This forum will engage different sectors of society on the implementation and benefits in the digital development that will surely affect young people. Apart from the fact that young people constitute 50% of South Africa's population, they are indeed a group worth considering when putting together effective business strategies. Despite significant progresses, our country remains divided, with opportunities still shaped by the legacy of apartheid, in particular young people and women who are denied the opportunities to lead the lives they desire. Our constitution, which emanates from the Freedom Charter, obliges all of us to tackle these challenges. Chairperson, each generation has a positive responsibility to take affirmative actions to prepare for the next generation for successful economic participation. Chairperson, let me also conclude, because I see I'm left with few minutes. In conclusion, Honorable, especially to Honorable Kasim and Mbata.
Unfortunately, Honorable Member, you did not have a few minutes, you had a few seconds. Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Honorable Chaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I take it that the hands that were being clapped was just a sign of welcoming me to the podium. Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson, June 16, 1976 was a turning point in the South African politics. The contribution made by the then students towards political freedom we are enjoying today will never be forgotten. Soweto uprising also coincides with the manifestation of odious elements on our shores, which admittedly have stifled the objective priority strategies of inclusive growth and youth development. It is unfortunate that the South African economy is still in the hands of the few. It is for this reason, Honorable Chairperson, that we have to advance the youth economic empowerment. The attention and interest of our youth should be drawn to the fields of agriculture, accountancy, marketing, and other skills that will contribute to the youth economic empowerment. On top of the political freedom we gained, economic freedom is urgently required. The economic empowerment of our youth is the best option. Youth should stay away from drugs and other intoxicating substances. We should, as a result, take lead from the 1976 generation, whose character and fortitude remind us that our struggle for a just society has just begun. The Agenda 2020 project, which seeks to quantum leap the role and contribution of young people in technology, innovation, and trade, must rally young people to self-flagellate on their failures and work on their strength. The current irritations in political, however, with their attendant undertones to undermine our sovereignty, will stop at nothing to derail our cause. It is this irritation that should propel us into action. So we must ask, do we simply wither in difficult times, or like President Thabo Mbeki has said, wallow in despondency to defeat adversity? We choose neither. Neither is legal to help annihilate the capture of state and the erosion of values that the Constitution commits us to uphold. NFS and NYTA opportunities should be properly implemented, and corrupt individuals should be put aside so that we have got progress in our country. Then we are in a position now to engage on youth development and economic empowerment. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is Honourable Pluama.
Honourable Chair, honourable members, first we need to apologize to all the young people who sacrificed their lives for free quality education and yet is still a pipe dream. And those who are not employed and watching with dismay when those who are in power continue to distribute patronage. Honourable members, the truth is the youth of our country have been thrown into a gas chamber. Our young people are suffocated when their future fade before their eyes. You only need to be a member of the ANC to be connected with opportunities. You look at the number of graduates who are not working, living under conditions of shameful poverty. The ANC must bow their head in shame. whether the ANC education, you begin to doubt whether the ANC education policy are not perpetuating PW border reforms. The ANC government betrayed the youth of this country by advocating a liberal paradigm of institutional integration and corporatization in 2003. Conscious or unconsciously entrenched the terms of the apartheid leader. Honorable members, our young people are banished to a life of inferior and despair. The 23 years of ANC rule can be characterized of years of lost opportunity to create a conducive platform for our young people to reach their potential. Young people deserve a productive, fulfilling future. I want to say to young people, don't give up and succumb to challenges. These challenges will make you stronger and a better person. There is a hope and light at the end of the channel. Come 2019, the ANC will be out. Leaders of merit will act according to the mandate of the government. Don't commit suicide or lose hope when confronted by difficulties, more especially in the rural areas where even when you are not employed, you're still required to travel and buy data to search for employment. You cannot afford to live in town since you are not employed. Government must commit seriously to work in hand with the youth. We know you have created a jungle of nepotism and patronage, but at least change for the sake of the youth. In 2019, when our SA and other parties take over from the ANC, we'll make sure that we are not going to misuse young people and indoctrinate them like Hitler did, to pounce on perceived enemy, to intimidate those who differ with authority of the day. Even institutions which are meant for the youth are used to distribute patronage. Our young people are bright and creative, but lack opportunity. Honorable members, I'm asking for this. These are the solutions that we are pushing for.
Your time has expired.
We are saying all young people must get data for free. They must get free transport.
Honorable member, your time has expired. The next speaker is the Honorable Makubele Mashele.
Good afternoon, honorable members. The LMS Capsule Lama has just spoken and is so disillusioned, thinking that he can win elections when he's just the only member in this house. Members, the main economic objective of the ANC-led government since the dawn of democracy has been skills development for job creation, the reduction of poverty and inequality, and the overall sustainable growth of the wealth of the country. Young people are a major human resource for the development of the country and act as key agents for social change and economic expansion and innovation. A significant number of our young people across the country are not prepared for work, thus are unproductive potential workers. It is of principal importance that steps be taken to prevent this waste of our nation's human resource by providing skills and development and training. The theme of Youth Month seeks to mainstream the youth development agenda and participation of young people into the broader economy. The youth economic empowerment is the means through which the youth of the country can be assisted to succeed in life. Youth-targeted interventions are needed to enable young South Africans to actively participate and engage in the economy. Many in the opposition benches think that economic empowerment is the function of government only. No. Youth empowerment must be a shared responsibility that calls for all partnerships between government, the private sector, and the broader civil society. Giving young people access to skills development programs and jobs remains the priority of government. Our government recognizes that the youth of today have completely different struggles, which is high unemployment rate, alcohol, and substance abuse. We understand that the political freedom on its own is not enough. The youth who form the majority of the population are hungry for economic empowerment. The class of 1976 stood for what they believed in, which was better education. They stood up against armed police and brought us the freedom that we are enjoying today. Today's struggles are about the economy and opportunities. We must emulate the youth of 1976 by standing up against all forms of corruptions which erode equal opportunities for young people. We must unite and rise against unemployment and inequality. The urgency for the participation of youth at the top end of the economy has been emphasized by the recent unemployment statistics. These unemployment figures paint a disturbing picture, which shows that the country is regressing rather than improving. We welcome the youth set-aside budget of about 23 billion for the next 5 years, tabled by the Minister of Economic Development in his recent budget approved by this House. Increasing investment in young people is the key to their development and empowerment. It is a step in the right direction in the alleviation of poverty. Honorable members, our government continues to invest in the youth of the country. There are many initiatives structured programs tailor-made to benefit the youth. To date, over 1.7 million of South Africans have joined the ranks of the middle class. These are young professionals and a well-skilled workforce that is much needed for our economy to grow. Majority of this population of the middle class strata are the black middle class who benefited from the National Skills Fund. The National Skills Fund is the aid scheme of government which is a vehicle to educate and skill the youth and prepare them to enter the formal labor force and be productive citizens. One of the primary aims of the skills development is to improve access to labor markets in the formal economy, increase income and strengthen social networks for poverty reduction. Learning vocational skills helps to ensure food security, rural development, both in which are important for fighting against poverty and inequalities. To date, about 1.7 million from the National Skills Fund was allocated towards Transnet to train about 1,000 artisans over 3 years. Training is delivered across the country. About 1.73 million was taken from the Skills Fund towards ISCOM to train about 1,250 artisans, and about 23 million from the Skills Fund towards South African Airways to train about 136 artisans over the period of 3 years. Honorable members, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. This is by Victor Hugo, who's the famous French literature scholar, stated it best when he said, "There is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." The fourth industrial revolution is that idea, which builds on the digital revolution, presenting new ways in which technology becomes embedded and breakthroughs in a number of fields. Our youth has to position themselves to engage proactively with these rapidly evolving technologies. We have within our means the capacity to harness the potential of these technologies, capacity to improve the lives of South Africans. Our government has to ensure that our people, in particular the youth, are not left behind, and that technology benefits society as a whole. Training and skilling and long life learning is the only journey to develop the correct and relevant skills for this fourth industrial revolution. Demand continues to grow for skills that enable us to keep up with structural changes in the economy brought about by urbanization, technological change, shifting patterns, and consumer demand. Honorable members, the question that we must ask ourselves as members of parliament is that how do we measure the impact of youth empowerment programs through our oversight work? Consolidating and integrating youth development into the mainstream economic government should be our work when department comes before Parliament on their strat plans and APPs. As young MPs, we should be asking ourselves if these programs are really doing what they're doing on the ground, and our oversight work should be towards ensuring that these programs do work for our young people, instead of coming here and politicking. Various departments come before this House year in and year out and table their APPs and strat plans. Our eyes must be focused on every government department to ensure that policies and budget talk to youth development. If the youth want to take ownership and leadership of tomorrow, strengthening their capacity and widening their vision is the only choice. There are no shortcuts to development and empowerment. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is Honourable Alberts.
Thank you, Chairperson. Many of the debates in this House are experiences of deja vu. A study of the many youth debates conducted since 2009 reveals that they mostly concern the economic status of the youth and an opportunity that would be lost if we do not create an environment for the youth to become employed and propel the economy forward. While the workforce of first world countries are aging, we have available to us a demographic dividend. It is, however, sad to say that the debates remain the same, the solutions proposed by the opposition remains ignored, and the youth remains lost. Wat wel verander is die dringendheid van die kwessie, van die jeug raak al gaande meer ongeduldig. Dit voorspel niks goed vir sosiale kohesie nie. Perhaps a historical approach will be of better assistance to ensure that the matter is better understood. The quagmire of economic stagnation and poor service delivery did not fall out of the sky. It came about due to certain decisions and actions taken by the ANC post-1994. One thing leads to another, also known as causality, and this universal law leads to that phenomenon also known as the chickens coming home to roost. The ANC's first task post-1994 was to replace the mainly experienced public service employees with their own cadres. Those who could not be convinced to take packages were forced, thereby destroying institutional memory and wiping out swaths of experience that could have been used to deliver proper services and, importantly, education and mentorship for the new people. It is to be noted that experienced teachers were also forced out of their profession. Since then, the ANC has been treating the youth like mushrooms, feeding them a basic education equal to bull-derived manure and keeping them in the dark ages. Die ANC is 'n kaderontplooiing het mense wat meestal die mentaliteit van sladiemootsing openbaar en belangrike posisies geplaas, naamlik mense oortuig daarvan dat hulle 'n funksie kan verrig waarvoor hulle eintlik glad nie gereed is of opgelei is nie. Dit het die effek gehad dat talle arm swart mense endemies blootgestel is aan swak dienslewering in Suid-Afrika en die jeug aan substandaard onderwys. Dit is steeds vandag ongelukkig die geval. Daarbij het die ANC ook nog geëxperimenteer met ons jeug deur uitkomsgebaseerde onderwys wat talle jong mense ongeletterd gelaat het. So what is the answer then? How do we save the youth and build a future for them? Given the fact that we have the same debate and ignorance from the ANC year on year, it is clear that we will have to bring merit back into the system by ridding the country of the unmeritorious ANC and its failed policies. I thank you.
The next speaker is Honourable Butler.
Honourable members, the ANC has once again exposed its intellectual bankruptcy. They have shown that they do not care about the youth of South Africa. Surely this is not the best that you could do. Your benches are empty because you do not care about the youth of this country. Now, you have also shown that the only young person, by the way, that you care about is Duduzane Mzuma. And how can you begin to even understand the struggles of young people when you are so far removed from them? Now, in fact, the ANC doesn't even have young people. They do not even give them a chance to lead. The ANC benches are like a retirement village. They have got less than 0% MPs, while the DA has just over 13%. Our members are young, our members are leading, and you're showing it how it's done. Now, Chair, with all due respect...
Order, honourable members. Order. Continue, honourable member.
Chairperson, with all due respect, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education must be somewhat delusional. He claims that there's more than 2 million young people...
Order, honourable members. Continue, honourable member.
He claims that there's more than young people who have entered the missile middle, and I want to understand how, when more than 50% of young people who are particularly NASFAS do not make it past their first year. And these students don't excel because there's no adequate funding, they're not given allowances well in advance, particularly when it comes to their textbooks.
Honourable member, will just take your seat. Honourable members, order. Order. Honourable members, order. Honourable Minister, order. Honourable members, while interjections are allowed, you are not allowed to drown out the speaker at the podium. And please, Let us also keep track of the debate so that the interjections at least are relevant to what the honourable member is saying. Continue, honourable member.
On a point of order, House Chair.
Yes, honourable member. Order, honourable members. Honourable members, I want to take the point of order at the back.
Does he look old?
I just want to know that does she look at an old person when she looks at me?
Honourable member, that's not a point of order. Just continue, honourable member.
Thank you, Chairperson. He's probably 20 years older than me, so it's possible. Honourable Chairperson, we will once again hear the same recycled jargon from old ANC people masquerading as poster boys for young people like the next speaker. So allow me to bring us back to this debate. And I'm reminded of the words Frantz Fanon when he argues that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, either fulfill it or betray it. Today I stand before you 41 years after a momentous occasion, a day in which the books of history were rewritten, when the youth of South Africa rose up and said, our generation will change the status quo. On the morning of June 16, 1976, thousands of black students came together with one common purpose, to stand up against an unjust government. They understood they were not fighting a race, nor a man, but the unjust system that had suppressed black Africans for decades. A system that refused to give quality education to majority of young people in South Africa. An education system that suppressed free thinking and limited one from pursuing their dreams. Therefore, one cannot ignore the fundamental role the youth played in our liberation and a role that still lies before them. On that day, many young people across the country died. Their death was not in vain. Their legacy lives on, and it shines as a beacon of hope to many of us. If I were to state one of the qualities that I admire about this youth, it's their selflessness, their ability to think beyond your own individualistic concerns. You see, Chairperson, when South Africa held its first democratic election, I was only 14 months old. My mother carried me on her back to cast her first democratic vote. She cast her vote with the hope, you must listen attentively, you must begin to listen. Her hope was that I, as her child, her hope is that I would have a different life, that I would never be judged by the color of my skin, but the content of my character, that I would have equal opportunities in a free and a fair society. The only government I've experienced is that of the ANC. And I submit to you, we are no longer led by selfless beings. We are no longer led by men and women of integrity. We are no longer led by principles, because if we were, our country would have never been sold for a house in Dubai. We would not be led by those who continue to loot and steal from the poor. We would not have the highest unemployment rate. We would not have more than 6 million young people that are not in education, employment, or training. Honorable members, there is no true freedom in poverty. There is no true freedom in unemployment. There is no true freedom in sitting at home without an education due to the circumstances of your birth. There is no true freedom when young women are raped and killed on a daily basis. And the minister says that woman who was killed, she was weak. And that's why she's probably howling at me today, because she does not care about women. There is no true freedom when you are scared to walk freely in our own country. There is no true freedom in a junk status or recession. If we are serious about empowering the youth of South Africa, we must begin to understand that education is the path to freedom. The Democratic Alliance believes that an educated and skilled workforce is essential to grow the economy. Education, training, and skills program should aim to unlock the vast potential of young South Africans and the unemployed. We must therefore, honorable members, fix our education system. We must ensure, Deputy Minister, that qualifying students have access to the doors of education and are given the necessary support for them to excel. The high cost associated with higher education poses a significant barrier to many young South Africans. Our TVET colleges play an playing a pivotal role in filling the gaps that we need in the South African labor market. We must increase internships and learnerships with the aim of having more professionals in our economy. You see, the present challenges cannot be fixed by the very mentality that created them. We must have job creation and innovation through entrepreneurship. We must create opportunities for people instead of a bloated, corrupt state that is only dragging us backwards. The hands of time have done a complete 360. It is now 5 to the midnight hour of change. The ANC will have a rude awakening in 2019. The youth of South Africa must rise above their political lines, their racial divisions and class, and come together for the sake of our nation and our future children. Honorable members, it is very disturbing to stand here as a young person, and I'm asked why am I not at school. I am here to advocate for fellow South Africans. I'm here to advocate for young people whose struggles I've seen on a daily basis. By the way, I'm still a law student. You must go and read about it. Now, like the youth of 1976, to my fellow South Africans sitting up in the gallery, we must also find our mission. Allow me to suggest that our mission is to eradicate the social injustices that still prevail. Our mission is to create a free and fair society with equal opportunities for all.
Order. The next speaker is the Honorable Deputy Minister in the Presidency. Honorable Deputy Minister. Thank you. Order, honorable members. Order.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The regards to
order, honorable members
of the Masibambane High School and also from Hector Peterson High School and Bluecomb Boss High and the Khayelitsha College students who are here today waving their beautiful new South African flag and showing their solidarity. Honorable House Chair, as we commemorate the 14th anniversary of the youth uprising on June 16, we're reminded just how far young people have come over the decades since that fateful day. This debate must make an honest reflection of the strides that we have made as a country to improve the lives of the millions of young people. To suggest that 1976 is no different to 1994 and that 1994 is no different to 2017 is essentially to be blind to the truth that every South African see on a daily basis, that South Africa has dramatically changed compared to 1976, comparing it to 2017. Yes, there are still challenges, and those challenges are what we are hard at work in ensuring that we deal with. Contrary to popular belief, and as suggested in many quarters, young people are not lazy or feel entitled. Young people do not want handouts, but rather they want a hand up. They look to us as political leaders of this country to create an enabling environment in which they can succeed. This situation of youth in many ways mirrors the development of our country over the last 2 decades. The freedom pathway to democracy and development has not been an easy one. It's an uneven pathway characterized by strides, feats, starts, leapfrogs, and obstacles. Good development progress has been made with our democracy restoring the dignity of millions of South Africans and changing their lives for the better. But we are reminded that more needs to be done as we tackle unemployment, inequality, crime, racism, corruption, and substance abuse that threaten to derail us. While we have made good progress in youth development, we recognize that this is not enough and that more needs to be done, and that we must institutionalize youth development. We must build apparatuses for oversight mechanisms, structures, systems, and programs that can stand firmly and advance youth development. The National Youth Policy 2020 is our key instrument for youth development. The National Youth Policy was informed by the African Youth Charter, which suggests that a national youth policy must be cross-sectoral in its nature and must enable youth development to be integrated and mainstream into all planning and decision-making, as well as program development. And effective oversight and monitoring of policy implementation must follow. And thus, the Presidential Working Group on Youth is central in ensuring that we conduct this particular oversight. Now, Honorable Kasim suggests that there's not been progress at all, and in fact, almost is blind to the progress that has been made. But Honorable Kasim is so out of touch, and I want to use this opportunity to congratulate Babes Wodumo and Nasty C, and those young people there know whom we are talking about. Now, you're so out of touch with them. You are so out of touch with them, and I'm certain that DJ Menirie may teach you a thing or two about Babes Wodumo and Nasty C and Quest and many others. But how can you be so out of touch about the cultural interests of young people and yet come here and claim that you speak to the same young people? It's probably because you're overly indulged with the lyrics of Steve Hofmeyer, which you come here and repeat on a daily basis. But not only did you say that, both Honorable Botwa and Honorable Mbata reminded me of my engagement with young people in Kailicha, in Hector Peterson High School, who insisted that we should put history as part of our education system. Now, to suggest here that people such as Solomon Mahlangu, who died in 1979 at the hands of the apartheid regime, sacrificed his life, that Solomon Mahlangu spent his time drinking wine and whiskey in exile, is actually blasphemous. To suggest that people like Patrick Chamusa, who was deployed into the country to bomb Sasol and disrupt the apartheid regime and its economy, and that those who trained him were lavishing in exile, is actually blasphemous. To suggest that people like Ruth First, who died from a letter bomb, and to come here in this house and rubbish that history, is actually blasphemous. And you and Honorable Botwa need to be taught history ABC.
Honorable Deputy Minister, will you just take your seat? Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Why are you rising, honorable member?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Is the Deputy Minister willing to take a question?
Honorable Deputy Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Shame on you, Deputy Minister. Shame on you. Shame on you to desecrate on the democracy that has been achieved and that has been established, and to actually rubbish the efforts that have been made by many others in order to ensure that we realize our freedom. Honorable Hlengwa comes here and say that there's no multi-party youth forum because the ANC has got only one young person below the age of 35. But he wouldn't tell us as to how many young people in the IFP are actually under the age of 35, because he's the only one. But even worse, he came here looking much older than Honorable Ben Martin.
Deputy Minister, please take your seat. Honorable Hlengwa, why are you rising?
I feel that...
Why are you rising? I don't want to hear what you say.
He asked me a question, so I must respond.
Well, no, honorable member. Please take your seat.
Oh, so I can't respond.
Take your seat, honorable member.
Oh, but there's still one.
Continue, honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you. It is such a pity. It is such a pity that young people such as Honorable Hlengwa and Honorable Butwa, who come here and parade their age, are actually more senile than the oldest people I know, more hard of hearing than some of the older people I know, and actually lose his memory as soon as they are sent this.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Order. What's the honorable member's point of order?
Chairperson, is it parliamentary for that very old honorable member to call other honorable members senile?
Honorable member, take your seat.
Is it parliamentary?
Take your seat, honorable member. Take your seat, honorable member. Continue, honorable Deputy Minister.
Let me illustrate their loss of memory, honorable House Chairperson.
as part of the address by Honorable Manana, he comes here, he opens the debate. 15 minutes later, all these honorable members forget, and that's how they lose their memory, listening, and display their senility. Higher education enrollments today stand at close to 900,000. In 1976, there was less than 100 black people or black young people in universities. That in itself represents progress. The number of university students graduating from higher education increased by 6%, from 180,000 in 2013 to 191,000 in 2015. Just take your seat.
Honorable,
why are you rising, honorable member?
I'm rising on correcting the truth. He's
no, honorable member, that's not a point of order.
University of
That's a point for debate. Take your seat.
Students.
I'm switching off your mic. Continue, Honorable Deputy Minister. Order, honorable members. Thank you. Now, part of the things that not only are they blind, not only are they hard of hearing and all of that, but they're also blind. Because they're blind to the fact that more than 15,000 in the last financial year have been trained as interns and as part of graduate development program, and many of these young people will be integrated into the public sector. 15,000 young people will be trained as part of the Working for Water program. More than 18,000 young people have gone through the NARISEC program, and many of them have changed their lives as a result of that particular program. Of the 1.1 million young people who are participating in the Extended Public Works program, many of those are young people who had given up hope and who now see hope because it gives them an opportunity to change their lives. 48,000 young people in 2016 have graduated as artisans. Now, the old verkrampte apartheid regime did not allow young black South Africans to be trained as artisans. Today, this ANC is making progress with regards to that. As we speak today, in Gauteng, the Premier of Gauteng is launching Tsepo 1 million in Gauteng. Now, more than 350,000 young people already have gone through this project. But what is sad is that those who came here, Honorable Butwa, drunk in her ageism, drunk in only seeing people's weaknesses on the basis of their age, but lacks objectivity in terms of what needs to be done for young people. She is blind to the fact that her own DA in Tshwane is cancelling the TEPO 500,000, and that's why the ANC government in the province of Gauteng is upscaling this into 1 million more. So you can come here and be young and expose the fact that you are more reactionary than some of the very progressive old people who are sitting on this house. In fact, I think what is sadder on the part of Honorable Butwa is to think that her party is led by a young black male. And I think the events of this history have shown to the contrary. They have shown that in as much as the Honorable Maimane, young black man, occupies the seat, there is some remote control sitting somewhere. And what happened this week was to stage manage the process to try and induce back the vote which you may have lost. But I want to tell you now, no matter how long the wool is, you will not succeed in pulling it in the eyes of young people, because they can see the lies that you are trying to project. They know who's in charge. They know who's in charge. They know that none of you, especially the absentee leader of the opposition, is actually not in charge. Now, part of the things which the opposition almost always comes here and talk about, and I'm sure you've noticed they've never said anything about it, is their consistent complaint about the National Youth Development Agency. And do you know why? It is because they are very impressed themselves with what the NYDA has been doing for the last 3 to 4 years. That's why none of them came here to complain about the NYDA. And part of the progress and success that the NYDA has achieved includes the training of more than 1,000 young people into entrepreneurship and actually inducting them into small businesses. A successful youth build program, which they're doing with the Department of Human Settlement, creating jobs through its limited and mega resources, and also more than 1,500 young people benefiting from the Solomon Mahlangu scholarship, and more than 1 million young people having gone through the NYDA scholarship, a career guidance program. And that's why none of them will come here and rubbish the NYDA, because they know young people are watching this debate and they'll be disappointed with them in terms of saying that the NYDA is working. Yes, I want to say to young people out there, yes, we've listened to you in terms of access to NYDA services. And as part of this next financial year, the NYDA will be opening 2 new branches, one of those being in Mtata and the other being in Newcastle, as part of expanding services and ensuring that we give quality service to young people. Now, Honorable Kasim, Babes Wodumo and Mampincha, young people, we keep young people on the dance floor. And we're actually very excited about the prospects of this country. So young people who know what they're talking about created something called Ninomona. You have jealousy. So you came here and shouted, the ANC will lose 2019 and yada yada yada. Let me tell you now that the electorate will be telling you that Ninomona. The ANC has houses for the majority of our people, and they'll say to you when they go to the ballot, Ninomona. They'll say to you that we've got people having access to education. We've got so many young people whom this government has listened to today have been kept into institutions of learning, and when they go to the ballot, they'll say to the opposition parties, Ninomona. They'll tell you that this here is where all of you belongs, and that only the ANC will change this country for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order. Thank you. You may take your seats. Take your seats. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. Honorable members, before I proceed to the next item, I want to make the following ruling. Order. Honorable members will recall that last week I made a part ruling in terms of points of order that were raised during the debate on the President's budget vote on Wednesday the 31st of May 2017. I now want to deal with the second part of that ruling that was made then. The ruling deals with points of order that were raised in response to certain remarks made by the Honorable Pluama and also the Honorable Deputy Minister, and I've dealt with that part, the second part, that is the Honorable Deputy Minister. At the time of the remarks being made, I indicated that I would study the answer and revert to the House with considered rulings. And having had the opportunity to look at the contested remarks and the rules of the House, I wish to rule as follows. Various members contended that the Honorable Pluama had, during the course of his speech, and when referring to the President, contravened Rule 85 and imputed improper motives to the head of state. Having looked at the transcript, I can confirm that the member made various allegations that were indeed prefixed by allegations, but also other type of remarks. He also made the following statement on which a specific point of order was taken, and he said that the President was, and I will quote, handing over our country to dark forces, crooks, close quote. Rule 85 refers to reflection upon members, the President, ministers, deputy ministers who are not members of the Assembly. And it states that no member may impute improper motives to any other member or cast personal reflection upon a member's integrity or dignity, or verbally abuse a member in another way. Sub-Rule 2 states that a member who wishes to bring any improper or unethical conduct on the part of another member to the attention of the House may do so only by way of a separate substantive motion, comprising a clearly formulated and properly substantiated charge that, in the opinion of the Speaker, prima facie warrants consideration by the House. Honourable Pluama, your statement was a clear violation of Rule 85, and I must ask you to withdraw that remark.
I withdraw, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable members, we now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice? The Honourable Chief Whip.
House Chair, on behalf of the African National Congress, we move without notice that this House notes the exhumation of 8 United Democratic Front political prisoners on the 31st of May 2017 who were buried in the Mamelodi Cemetery in Tshwane. Further notes that the 8 United Democratic Front members were hanged for politically motivated offenses between 1986 and 1989 and were buried in unmarked graves. Acknowledges that the 8 United Democratic Front members were part of the 140 political prisoners hanged between 1960 and 1989 and buried as paupers in cemeteries around Tshwane. Further acknowledges that the exhumations form part of the Gallows Exhumation Project launched in 2016, which is aimed at recovering the remains of political prisoners who were hanged prior to the suspension of the death penalty in 1990. Recalls that the tasks to recover the graves of the political prisoners was given to the Missing Persons Task Team in the National Prosecuting Authority to conduct the exhumation. Commends the Missing Persons Task Team for the sterling work in recovering the remains of the former missing political prisoners, and lastly, urges the Missing Persons Task Team to continue in their endeavors to recover all political prisoners and activists buried inhumanly in unmarked mass graves throughout the length and breadth of our country. I so move.
Thank you. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, I put it. The DA?
Madam Chairperson, namens die DA stel ek
On behalf of the DA, I want to move that the House takes note of the death of Karel Schoeman, the wonderful translator, historian, writer, at the age of 77 in Bloemfontein. Also takes note that Schoeman matriculated at the Hoër Jongenskool in Paarl. He also had a BA degree at the University of the Free State, and then he went to the Roman Catholic Seminarium in Pretoria, and then took on the Roman Catholic religion, and then went to Ireland, but decided not to be ordained as a priest, and then he returned to Bloemfontein, where he had a high diploma in library science. Further takes note that during his very long career, he also worked as head of library in the Netherlands, as a male nurse in Scotland, and also as an archivist in the South African Library in Cape Town, that we admit that Karel Schoeman was a writer, and that was he awarded, therefore, and 3 times he was awarded the Hertzog Prize, and he was seen as the Shakespeare or the Dostoevsky of Afrikaans, that we have translations which was in German, English, French, Dutch, and Russian, and in 1999 he also was awarded with the Order of Outstanding Service from our former President Nelson Mandela, and that we want to admit with what his fellow writer said, he just gave a step over the drift to a brighter light where shadows cannot stain him anymore. Seldom, if ever, did the country and its people echo like they did in the work from Schoeman.
Are there objections to the motion? No objection, agreed to. Thank you. EFF?
Thank you, Chair. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note the biggest settlement building project in the occupied West Bank in 25 years, and the cutting off 40% of the electricity supply to the Gaza Strip by the apartheid state of Israel. Note that this forms part of the broader colonial settler project of turning the land of Palestine into Zionist national state. Acknowledge that this colonial settler project has been built on the dispossession and expelling of over 7 million Palestinians from their land. Further acknowledge that the illegal settlement building in the West Bank and the cutting off of electricity to the Gaza Strip are acts of aggression and defenseless people. Recognize that the consequences of this action will include hospitals and water treatment facilities without electricity and the creation of more Palestinian refugees. Further note that this is all taking place during the holy month of Ramadan, which is of great importance to many Palestinians. Acknowledge the many similarities in the policies and methods of the old apartheid government and the current Israel government. Further acknowledge the need to isolate the Israel government and support the Palestinian people. Condemn the Israel government for the building of settlements in the West Bank and the cutting of electricity to the Gaza Strip. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion?
Objection, Madam Chair.
Okay. Your objection will be noted. ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that the United Nations General Assembly, in its resolution 66/127, designated June 15 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, acknowledges that June 15 represents the one day in the year when the whole world voices its opposition to the abuse and suffering inflicted on some of our elder generations, believes that elder abuse is a global social issue which affects the health and human rights of millions of older persons around the world, and an issue which deserves the attention of the international community, understands that the maltreatment of the elder generation can lead to serious physical injuries and long-term psychological consequences. Recalls that recent research findings draw specific attention to financial exploitation, material abuse of older persons as a common and serious problems, and calls upon member states and civil society to strengthen their resolve and redouble their effort to eliminate all forms of violence and abuse against older people. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there objections to the motion? No objections, agreed to. Let me clarify the previous motion of the EFF that was objected to by the ACDP falls away. IFP?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of the IFP, I hereby move without notice that the House notes that on Tuesday, 13 June 2017, the world observed International Albinism Awareness Day. Further notes that albinism is still profoundly misunderstood socially and medically, and that this leads to various forms of stigma and discrimination. Acknowledges that in several cultures around the world, and particularly in many African countries, people with albinism live in constant fear of murder. Further acknowledges that in some countries, people with albinism, children included, are killed and dismembered for ritual purposes, with parts of their bodies sold for thousands of dollars by criminal witch doctors. And finally, calls on all relevant arms of government to heed the call by the United Nations to spread awareness and to continue their efforts to protect and preserve the rights of persons with albinism to life, dignity and security, as well as their right not to be subject to torture and cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. I so move.
Thank you. Is there an objection to the motion? No objection. Agreed to. NFP?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move without notice that this House notes that law enforcement authorities in Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal seized heroin worth over 100 million rand on Monday, 12 June 2017. And further notes that the drug bust came after members of the Petroleum Crime Intelligence had gathered information about a vehicle which was going to enter South Africa through the Kosi Bay port of entry from Mozambique with trucks. And finally notes that a 27-year-old man was immediately arrested in possession of heroin, and intensive investigation followed, which led to the hawks to Gauteng, where two foreign nationals, aged 24 and 29 years of age, were arrested and were found with 50,000 rand in cash in their possessions. Wherefore, we call upon this Honorable House to congratulate the Richards Bay Organized Crime Unit, along with crime intelligence officers in Mpangeni and Pretoria, as well as the Hawks, on a job well done, and encourage our law enforcement agencies to continue to cooperating in their war on drugs with vigor and commitment. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the untimely death of yet another SABC actor, Jabu Kanyile, on Monday, the 12th June 2017, at the age of 48. Further notes that Gubega, who was popularly known as gunman from his role on Yizo Yizo, was found dead in his Soshanguve home in Tswane. Remembers that he also appeared in other TV productions, including Zone 14, Zabalaza, and Gold Diggers, which is a clear indicator that he was an entertainer. Recalls that he was a charismatic actor who was talented both in acting and music. Understands that the police are awaiting post-mortem results to confirm the exact cause of his death. Believes that Gubega's untimely death has robbed the broadcaster in South Africa of great talent, and conveys condolences to his wife, family, and friends. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. UGM? Ni. Oh. My apologies. Continue.
Okay. I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that two dangerous criminals convicted of serious crimes and who made a daring escape from the Zwelitsha Magistrates Court on the 24th in the Eastern Cape have been arrested. Further notes that these two criminals were arrested 2 weeks after they had escaped from court, where they were appearing on additional charges related to motor vehicle theft. Recalls that the two criminals had overpowered a prison guard before fleeing in a correctional services vehicle. Acknowledged that at the time of arrest, the criminals were heavily armed with a 9mm pistol and R5 rounds of ammunition, but the law enforcement officers apprehended them. Commend the swift action by the law enforcement agencies, in particular the South African Police Service officers and the Correctional Services officers. Calls for the relevant authorities to increase the security of the courts and close the possibility of criminals escaping when attending court hearings. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. FF plus? Me. DA?
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that the city of Tshwane was recently named the most eco-friendly municipality at the 2017 Ecologic Awards. Also notes that the Ecologic Awards identify and award individuals, organizations, and communities that contribute towards creating a greener and more sustainable world. Further notes that the annual award ceremony was established in 2011 by Enviropedia and has grown from strength to strength, becoming one of Africa's most prestigious events on the eco calendar. Acknowledges that in the municipality category, the award is bestowed on a municipality that has developed solutions using its risk assessment and management expertise, forming strategic partnerships to improve sustainability as well as service delivery in municipal functions. Congratulates the city of Tshwane on receiving this award and wishes them well in their continued efforts to create a greener and cleaner metro for all who live in it. And finally, thanks Enviropedia and the organizers of the 2017 ECO for the award. Thank you.
Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. EFF?
Thank you, House Chair. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters for the House to note that the procurement of important foodstuff by the caterers and eating facilities of Parliament Kitchen. Further note that these important food items include butter from Denmark and chicken from Canada. Acknowledge that this is happening while the poultry industry that is on the brink of the collapse because of the unfair competition. Further acknowledge that because of the important food goods, in this case chicken, tens of thousands of South Africans are unnecessarily losing their jobs, adding to our growing unemployment and poverty. Note that this is not a product like cars, which we do not produce, but food with which we are very capable and are currently producing, which represent the people of South Africa, some who work in the food production industry, ensure that all food catered and supplied by Parliament is produced in South African and support South African jobs and families. Set an example of consuming proudly South African products, including food. We call on South African Parliament to only contract with companies that procure all foods that it caters for in Parliament Kitchen from local producers and suppliers. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objection. Agreed to.
Chairperson. Just clarity, that sounded more like a member statement than a motion. We didn't hear within the presentation of it the typical formulation of a statement.
It's a motion without notice. Thank you.
Well, then it's very oddly formulated, Chair.
ANC?
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows that South Africa's sprinter Wade van Niekerk delivered another superb performance on Saturday, 10 June 2017 by smashing the national 200-meter record at a meeting in Kingston, Jamaica. Further knows that the versatile speedster who holds the 400-meter world record broke the 2-year-old mark of 19.87 previously held by another South African, Anaso Jobodwana. Understand that Van Niekerk was performing at the Racers Grand Prix, Jamaica. Jamaican sprinters Usain Bolt's farewell tour, where he raced in his final 100-meter on his home soil. Recalls that Van Niekerk finished ahead of Jamaicans Rashid Raya and London 2012 bronze medalist Warren Weir. Remembers that 2 years ago, Van Niekerk became the first South African to break through the 20-second barrier in the 200-meter when he blitzed to a time of 19.97 in a B final at a meeting in Lucerne, and congratulates Wade van Lieket for raising the flag of South Africa once again. We so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objection. Agreed to. Cope. Nierni. CDP. Gone. ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the death of well-known Cape Town runner Nazim Isaacs, who was killed in a hit-and-run incident in Claremont, Cape Town, early on Tuesday, 6 June 2017. Understands that the 42-year-old Nizam Isaacs, who was part of the ETEC or running club, was doing his morning run when he was knocked down just after 4 a.m. Further understands that the eyewitnesses assisted the police and the petroleum security services by sharing the number plate of a silver Volkswagen GTI vehicle. Believes that Isaacs was an avid runner with a huge amount of experience and was known for being a dedicated athlete, and conveys its condolences to his family, friends, and the Iteko running club. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. AIC. Abagona. Arang, South Africa. Abeko. ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates Bidvest Football Club for winning the ABSA Premiership title and crowned 2016-2017 champions on Saturday, 27th May 2017. Recalls that this is the first PSL title for the club since its inception in 1996 and their second trophy this season, after they have won the MTN 8 earlier this season. Further recalls that this is also Coach Gavin Hunt's fourth league championship win. Understand that the Braamfontein-based club secured South Africa's most prestigious football title after a long, incredible, entertaining, and arguably one of the best seasons in which football fans witnessed plenty spectacular goals in a long while. Acknowledges that the Bidvest deserved to win the league 2016-2017 as they were forced to be reckoned with, were also consistent in playing brilliant football, and conveys warm wishes to the Vest following their title victory and wishes them well in the upcoming season. I so move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. APC? Not here. PAC? DA?
House Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I move without notice that the House acknowledges the dire circumstances in which students at technical and vocational education and training, or TVET colleges, who have not been able to secure accommodation during their studies, find themselves. Recognizes that students staying in makeshift lodgings, such as empty college offices, face real threats to their health, safety, and academic careers. Notes with concern the admission by the Minister of Higher Education and Training that his department does not currently know how many beds are available for student accommodation at TVET colleges. Agrees that such information is crucial to addressing the student housing crisis and urges the government to prioritize the building and maintenance of student accommodation in order to ensure access to a safe learning environment and the educational opportunities offered by TVET colleges. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. ANC?
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the appointment of Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus from Ethiopia as the first African to lead the World Health Organization on Tuesday, 24th May 2017. Recalls that Mr. Tedros have led a comprehensive reform effort of Ethiopia's health system, creating health centers as well as jobs. Understand that this appointment has been welcomed by international medical bodies, charities, and the US government. Believes that this appointment is in recognition that Africa is rising and, like any other continent, has capable leaders with the ability to successfully lead international institutions. Further believes that Mr. Tedros will perform his task to the best of his ability and will make universal health care his priority. Thanks him for carrying the African continent to the international arena and wishes him much success in his new position of responsibility. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. That concludes motions without notice. The next item on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Chairperson, on a point of order.
On what point of order are you rising, honourable member?
Chairperson, member statements are a crucial tool for members of Parliament to hold the executive to account. We have the second biggest cabinet in the world. We have one cabinet minister here, and thank you very much, Honourable Pandor, for being here. But we have one cabinet minister. Look at the empty benches. It's a disgrace. It's an insult to members of Parliament on both sides of the House.
On the program, yes, I get you. Thank you very much.
May I ask what action is going to be taken, Chairperson?
I can't respond to what
may
action.
I suggest that the presiding officer's right to the government business?
Honourable Walters,
highlight this.
I think you know what should be done, please.
Which is what?
I think you know. Please take your seat. What you have said is noted. Honourable members, the item on the order paper now is member statements.
House Chair.
Chairperson?
Through your House Chair, our sincere apologies, House Chair. We concur with the expression made by Honourable Walters. Of course, we do have, whilst we have one minister, we do have three, in fact we have two ministers in the House. We have three deputy ministers, and therefore indeed it's a matter that we will follow up on through the relevant instruments that are here in Parliament. We thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I start from this side, going there? Honourable Skwasana.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Ihlangano ekulu indlovene batha i-ANC iragela phambili ngokuthumba amakhetho abuyelelwayo. La makhetho abanjwe ngomhla ka-14 June 2017 izolo lokho. Abantu beSouth Africa ngokuyithemba nokuyithanda bayayisekela lehlangano ukuze iqine ibe yikutani. Kungakho ithumbe amakhetho emawadini alandelayo. Ward 7 ePongola, KZN, Ward 15 Eastern Cape, eMnquma, Ward 45 eBarberton, eMpumalanga lapha i-ANC ibhudabhude khona i-EFF. Lamawodi bewangaphasi kwayo lehlangano i-ANC. Sithokoza isitshaba seSouth Africa ngokusekela ihlangano yesizwe i-ANC. Angekhe inilahle izokuba nani ngesikhathi sonke. Sithokoza ne-IEC ukusingatha amakhetho kuhle kangaka. Siradela phambili nekutani ikakaramba ithemba lesitshaba i-ANC. Ngiyathokoza. Thank you very much.
Sithokoze. GA.
Thank you, Chairperson. Revelations over the past few weeks of Gupta influence in all spheres of government have raised question marks over the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and his connections to this corrupt shadow state. In April last year, Minister Des Van Rooyen stated categorically that his one-day in and out trip to Dubai shortly after his appointment was in his private capacity and that he had paid for it personally. The fact of the matter, as revealed in the Gupta leaks emails, is that the trip was paid for by the influential Gupta family. In parliamentary questions and in the media, the Minister has repeatedly denied his association with the Guptas, yet his own Chief of Staff and Special Advisor have direct links with them. In fact, shortly after the oh-so-honourable Van Rooyen's appointment as Finance Minister, said Chief of Staff sent an email to Gupta affiliates entitled, "Gents, finally." So the questions we need to ask are these. Why are we being lied to? What do they seek to gain from his appointment? And the answer is right there before us. They want to get their hands on the 440 billion rand that is municipal expenditure annually. Not content with robbing our state-owned enterprises blind, they now seek to loot our municipalities too. Chairperson, how much longer must we put up with useless ministers, corrupt officials, and the shadowy hand of the Saxonwold mafia?
EFF.
Thank you very much, House Chair. This week, the chairperson of PRASA Board, Mr. Popo Mulife, expressed disgust at the failure of the Hawks to investigate corruption, which happened at PRASA under the chairpersonship of a certain Mr. Sifiso Buthelezi, who is now the Deputy Minister of Finance. The allegations of corruption against Mr. Buthelezi while at PRASA are not new. This House will recall that the former public protector, Advocate Thulisile Madonsela, released a report about corruption at PRASA which was called Derailed. In that report, she recommended that Mr. Buthelezi and his board must be criminally charged for contravening several sections of PFMAA. In the course of awarding at least 30 contracts, there is valid evidence and proof that the chairperson of PRASA then, Mr. Buthelezi, deliberately misled the board about his knowledge or know-how of certain companies that were bidding. A separate investigation by Treasury Chief Procurement Officer also recommended that Mr. Buthelezi be criminally charged for overlooking and benefiting from unbundled corruption at PRASA. Out of 216 contracts...
What rule are you rising, Honourable Member? I'm rising on Rule 85.2. The member must substantiate the statement that is making.
I'm doing it now.
In writing.
I'm on the roll. Wait, I'm on the roll.
Honourable Mbata, please don't respond because this is a point of order, please. Honourable Member, the allegations and all that says you must have a substantive motion. We know that. Continue, Honourable Mbata.
Chairperson.
Continue.
That point of order is extremely out of order.
Honourable Mbata have ruled. Please continue.
Yeah, thank you very much. Under his chairpersonship and his brother's company was also awarded 150 million shipping and logistic contracts. Now, Mr. Buthelezi has...
Honourable Member, your time has now expired.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I don't quite understand your response to the point of order that...
Yeah, the reason why you are old.
Chairperson, could you ask that honourable member to withdraw what he has just said?
Honourable Mbata, can we please respect one another in the House? To refer to a member of this House just to say yes because you are old is unparliamentary. Can you please withdraw that? Please.
She's young at heart.
Honourable Mbata, please withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
I thank the Honourable Mbata for withdrawing, but I'm not surprised. And actually, I think that, Chairperson, these insults to senior citizens, whether I am one or not, are really not worthy of a House of our character. So I do think we should look at it. However, I am rising with respect to 85.2, Chairperson. The Honourable Mbata made allegations against a member of this House and has not brought a substantive motion which is properly motivated. A statement as part of the rules, is not a substantive motion, alleging misconduct which must be brought to the attention of the House only by way of a separate substantive motion.
Yes, you are correct.
And you should then have ruled the Honorable Mbata out of order and not allowed him to continue.
Honorable Member, thank you very much for that. I think I highlighted to Honorable Mbata that it's true, it must be a substantive motion. Thank you.
Chairperson. Chairperson. Chairperson, can I address you?
Yes.
Chairperson, there is no need for a substantive motion on the information that Honorable Mbata read. That information was even presented to SCOPA sometime this year by PRASA, and that information is public knowledge. PRASA, in actual fact, is supposed to summon all those people to come and pay back the money
I have ruled on that matter, Honorable Mentor. I have ruled and we continue. Thank you. Can we have the ANC? Oh,
yep.
Honorable Filtani, on which rule are you rising?
May I address you, Chair, on this matter?
No, not on this matter. I have already ruled on it. Please.
On your ruling, sir.
No, we have ruled on that matter. Can I have a yes, member?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The African National Congress condemns the rise of Afrikaner nationalism and neo-Nazi sentiments, which recently surfaced at the University of Stellenbosch. On the 9th of May 2017, we learned with dismay the blatant overt racism and propagation of white supremacy by a certain sector of student community in an effort to reverse the gains of the former exclusive white Afrikaner university in the Boland region. Posters with Nazi undertones had been put up on the campus. The posters with a big heading, the Anglo-Afrikaner student, and the slogan, "Fight for Stellenbosch," was used to advertise a meeting at a university venue organized by an organization called the New Right. The image of the poster is reminiscent of Nazi-era propaganda. The ANC welcomes the university's statement condemning racism, racial superiority, and any attempt to polarize the institution. We understand that in 2016, the institution officially amended its language policy to reflect an inclusive and constitutional approach to education. However, we call upon the university to expose and reject incidents of this nature and apply harsh punishments to the perpetrators. The demon of racism has to be uprooted in its totality. I thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. 23 years into our constitutional democracy, some learners are still being turned away from our public schools on the basis of religious intolerance. It has been brought to our attention that a learner and adherent of the Sikh religion was not permitted entry at Benoni High School because of the fact that long hair and turbans, which are two cardinal tenets of the Sikh religion, are not permitted in terms of the school's code of conduct. The school principal did not reply to any parliamentary correspondence we sent him in this regard, and we accordingly referred the matter to the Gauteng Provincial Education Department for immediate investigation and possible disciplinary action. To date, this matter remains unresolved, and the learner was forced to find an alternative school so as not to miss the second year. Chairperson, this is a violation of the learner's constitutional rights, not only to education, but to equality, dignity, freedom of religion, and to having his best interest being of paramount importance in every matter concerning his person. This learner has been discriminated against by an apartheid-style high school operation run by Principal J.B. Seronio, and I now feel that the Honorable Minister of Education should get involved in this matter. I thank you.
Thank you. UGM? Nothing. ANC?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The ANC sends their condolences to the Logat family on the passing away of Yusuf Logat on Sunday, the 11th of June, 2017. Yusuf was a sports hero and an administrator who promoted non-racial sport when it was not fashionable to do so. He was a giant who advocated that there can be no normal sport in an abnormal society. He will remain one of the sports persons that transformed sports in South Africa.